Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi, Professor. This is from Flora, and today I'm going to interview on our presentation a little bit. Just the theme is remote work. So
Okay.
can I ask you some questions?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. There are only 10 questions, so it's
Okay.
not very long.
Very
and
good.
yeah, and the first question is, what is the name of the organization, and what products or services do they provide?
Sure. So for the period of time that I spent working
Yeah.
remotely or away from Canada as an expatriate,
Yeah.
it was with QualiCaps company, and QualiCaps manufactures empty gelatin capsules for the nutrition and the pharmaceutical market globally, worldwide.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. I love something related to
Okay.
nutrition. Yeah. And what motivated you to take the initiative to remote working? What drives you to
Okay.
work remotely?
Sure. Well, the opportunity presented itself two ways.
Yeah.
One, because I was already part of the company and
Yeah.
operating in Canada, making the same kind of capsules using the similar kind of technologies. The company wanted to expand into the European market, and one of its locations had no more capacity for expansion. So we needed to build a plant that would do the same things for lesser cost, and the location that was identified suited the purpose was in Romania, in Bucharest, Romania. And so the need was there for the business, for the expansion, and personally, it was interesting because it was in an Eastern European market, and that happens to be my background. So there was a good complementary experience and opportunity.
Oh, I totally understand that it's quite new environment, and you can just get to know more new things
Right.
and people.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the next is, what were your major concerns when you left Canada to work remotely?
It's a good question, Flora.
Yeah.
So major concerns were probably a couple. Of course, if you don't take your family with you, so you have options, usually with expatriate positions or positions of movement into foreign opportunities. Sometimes you have an opportunity to take a family with you, sometimes you don't. In my case, my children were old enough and they were in school already. They were either in university or planning to go to university, but my wife owned a business, and so she couldn't move. So in this case, I had to travel alone. And the challenge was that you're disengaging from your family and from your community and from your friends, but those are sacrifices that you have to make for either a career purpose or for learning and development and growth. And the decisions about moving the family later are options, or completing the assignment is part of the consideration. So in this case, the challenge was that I was going to miss my family.
Yes, sure. Are you feeling kind of homesick?
Well, I did, but the good thing is this is what one can do. One can negotiate a deal not to be away for too long, and in my case, that's what I did. So I managed it by negotiating in the contract that would allow me to come home once a week, every 6 weeks. So I would be there for a month and maybe an extra week, depending on the circumstances, and then be at home for a week. So I didn't miss my wife and kids too much.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's something
not
like that.
bad.
You
It's not
still
bad.
can come back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the next one is, how are you connected to the parent company while working?
Okay. Okay. Well, typically, this would be through infrastructure, management infrastructure. So in my case, first of all, we were connected through technology, in terms of communication technology. But I had a very good relationship with the chief executive officer, and so we had a good relationship in terms of what was the plan, what were the activities, what were the priorities, what was the time that we needed to execute the building and the commercialization of the operation. And so we agreed on a schedule of communication. We agreed on visits, we agreed on timeframes. So this is all done through either performance planning, through conversations, through prioritization. It's typically that's the way it is. It's not unlike whether I was operating the plant in Canada and he was living in North Carolina, for instance. You would have the same systems in place, except these were much more distant.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And the next one is how did the company help you to adapt to the new environment?
See, that's a very good question, especially for HR students.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely.
So this has a lot to do with either onboarding or managing expatriates. And the key for us, and because, as you know, I have an HR background,
Sure.
I contributed to the setup. But the company offered two things. One is it offered housing,
Yeah.
and it was my choice whether I wanted to stay in an apartment or to buy a house.
Oh.
And I made a mistake in not purchasing the house. Okay?
Oh, sure. You should purchase one there.
I should have purchased one there
Yeah.
because the value grew over the time I was there,
Sure.
and it would have been additional value to me. But nevertheless, and the other thing is this: is that most expatriates, depending on the circumstances of their foreign assignment, will have a challenge with traffic, getting to and from their apartment to the operation that they're managing. And in this case, I had a chauffeur, and partly because Bucharest was a crazy place to drive. Impossible if you don't know how to manage merging and roundabouts, and it was crazy. So I had a chauffeur who was a crazy driver, and I didn't have to worry about driving. So they accommodated the apartment and the opportunity, and of course they accommodated the driving. So you had freedom from anxiety over driving, but then you couldn't go anyplace afterwards because you didn't have a car to drive around. So I had to adjust for that later on, but the company was exceptional in meeting all your expectations and monitoring, what times, if you needed to do something special after work, they accommodated that too. So it was exceptional that
It's
way.
really perfect.
It was almost perfect.
Because they know you are a valuable resource for them company.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And what sort of empowerment did the organization provide for you?
Well, if you mean empowerment in
Yeah.
the sense of what could I have made decisions about, whether it was in the work environment or holistically, the fact that they provided an apartment to my liking, I could have filled it and furnished it any way I wanted, or I could have purchased a house. They were going to cover the expenses. The fact that they provided a chauffeur. And as my role was to be the senior person on site, so I had all of the empowerment. I could make the decisions not only for me but for others. So that was a good point. And also the expenditure, the capital spend that we needed to build the plant, that was within certainly my control, but also of course in concert with the chief executive. So we worked together to make sure that we spent money on things that contributed to our success. And I had quite a amount of leeway and freedom to spend and to do the things that I wanted to do, including making sure that I was able to come home and visit with my family. So it was a really good relationship that way. Very empowered to make it work.
So, and you're also self-empowered and so empower others.
And that's a very good observation.
Yeah.
And since that is our nature to do so,
Yep.
we also made sure that people on the shop floor and all the managers felt the same way.
Okay, cool. And the next one is, what metrics did the company use to evaluate your performance, and how were you rewarded?
Well, at my level, I had shares in the company, and so there was a very motivational performance standard. So in my case, that was part of it. But also, the metrics that were involved were very typical of how a private equity firm would manage. So many of the measures were essentially, because it was a startup operation, are we meeting the budget on spend? Are we meeting the deadline in terms of how quickly we can start the plant up and commercialize? And also, are we transferring product and attracting new customers within the time plans that we had? So there were commercialization
Yep.
And growth measures. There were financial measures in place, and there were measures of quality and productivity in place. So we had the typical measures around finance, operational, and in this particular case also timeliness in terms of starting up the new operation.
Okay. Can I say that this, what you're talking is just like something that like how HR plays a strategic partner role in an organization to help management?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are now, as you say, that you are also a stakeholder of the company. So that's why this is a very important reason that empower you and also encourage you to like try make your best effort and try hard, right?
Right. Well, in this, I can tell you, I'm not sure if it was strategic or not, because
Yep.
I already had operational background on how to make the capsules.
Sure.
So I knew how to manage that operation. But the fact that we're starting up a new plant, and I happen to be an HR person from my educational days and from practice, probably helped in terms of being able to put policies and practices in place to attract the right people, to make sure that they are empowered, to put systems in place that would create fairness, and other things that would energize the employee population to do their best and help us achieve the targets that we're seeking. So having that HR background in this case was a tremendous, tremendous asset.
Oh, that's really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
After the completion of your work, what did you feel about remote work?
Well, in the first week, really is a tremendous opportunity for either people who are already in the employment world, if they have an opportunity, or for students to seek, graduating students and new entrants to the workforce.
Yep.
If there's an opportunity to gain experience in a new and a different culture so that you are tested, it will be a significant value for your future career life. So that is something that, based on the kind of things we see in the work environment now, a valuable asset to be able to work in a foreign country and to experience that kind of an environment.
So it's a very asset in your life, and like, why not? Did you ask for another try, another?
Oh no, and I kind of semi-retired myself after that
Sure.
particular experience, and I wanted to enjoy doing something totally different. But I'm sure if the opportunity came up, that I would certainly learn from that experience.
Sure.
and probably agree to an assignment like that.
Okay, thank you. And what did you gain or learn personally as a remote worker?
I learned that next time I do this,
Yeah.
I'm going to take the offer to buy a house.
Oh, that's really wonderful. I know that because the inflation and
Right.
all the GDP, the whole world is crazy. I don't know, like
Right.
you purchase the house today, but next day the price is not the same price
Right,
as today.
and especially good if you're using somebody else's money to purchase it, not yours.
You mean the debt?
Yeah, if you don't have a debt.
Yeah.
So on that point, that's something interesting. But on a personal level, I think that what I learned is this: is that the world of work, which I sort of theoretized, I theorized.
Yep.
I get that word right. Theorized is not different from one place to another. Is actually true. So the kinds of things, certainly we're all sensitive to cultural habits in different organizations, which you guys learned about the other day. But in terms of how people work, what they want to do in their work day, what kind of concerns they have about work and life, it's not much different from any region around the world.
Yep.
And so the basic things that you're learning in this program and the things that are important to consider, I learned through experience, and I'm glad of that experience. So on a personal level, if you have a good understanding of how to address people, how to align people, how to motivate people, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
what culture and what region you're working in. So I thought that was a terrific experience. And you know, you really, the bottom line is how well to connect. If you can connect well, you'll be successful in an assignment like that.
Yes, can I say that it's something like the communication is really very important, and try to think of others, like try to switch your position with others.
Right.
You may know what others may think, so
Right.
you can better communicate and
Right.
then get everything smoothly and understand well.
Right, right. You know, and I think the right word is if you can empathize.
Yeah, empathize.
With the other parties involved and with their concerns and issues. And while empathy demonstrated in the North American culture is one thing, it might be somewhat differently expressed in another culture, let's say in an Eastern European culture or in a Chinese culture,
Yep.
but the essence of it is the same.
It's empathy.
The intent is the same.
Yeah, I remember this was what you said in class.
And I must have said it the same way because I believe it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Oh my God, the last question. I wish it's not the last one. If the opportunity arises again, will you choose to work remotely and why? Oh.
Oh, I think you already know the
Yeah.
answer to that.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah, and I would do so because, again, it happens to be a tremendous opportunity for learning and for
Yeah.
growth. And I've said this to you before, the best way to sort of develop your skill sets is to be involved in something that tests you in a way that is a unique challenge and that it's diverse in terms of opportunity and intensity. And so, you know, you will be tested in a new environment, but with the right support network, it'll be a tremendous value. So in my case, that was that was a tremendous opportunity, and I think that you know, it lasted 2 years. It was right for me to sort of scale back.
Yep.
But the question is, would I do it again? Absolutely, I would do it again under the right circumstances.
Oh, because if I were you, I would try again.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
really nice. It's something like this, a really nice journey, and it's a very valuable experience that you have never experienced.
Mhm.
And it will, like, I would feel that it will make myself more valuable than ever before.
Sure, absolutely. And in my case, since I've done it once, I'll learn from the things that I would do differently. Not differently for the sake of it, but for a better experience, for more impact, just like you would in any experience, if you have to repeat it. So yeah, it was a terrific experience, and as is this.
Yes, yes. Life is how it is.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Rachel.
Well, thank you very much, Flora. Good
Thank
job
you.
on the interview.
Thank you. Thank you for your valuable time with us.